What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Hoof Live on this Tuesday edition of the Cover One Network. Thanks for being with us. Sterling got stuck at work tonight, so it's just me and Anthony coming at you. And we got a lot to talk about with the Super Bowl. You know, crazy game. I just never seen the Chiefs in that vulnerability or that scenario. So that was all new for me. Just a quick shout out to a successful NFL season. I thought the NFL did a phenomenal job this year with the cards that they were dealt. So just a shout out to them. Anthony, what did you eat for Super Bowl Sunday? What was your food choice?
That's a good question. What did we have for Super Bowl Sunday? Kathy would remember better than I did. But we ordered food. We've been mostly ordering out, probably either Asian food of some kind or Indian. I don't remember what we ordered Sunday. But yeah, it was, we decided to go different than, your normal pizza and wings and stuff like that, because we figured those places were going to be bombarded and it'd be like 2 hours to get delivery. So we went a little bit different, exactly. Yeah. So we went good, though. We enjoyed it. We watched. It was very uneventful game, right? Nothing really happened. We were just watching, it's no Bills game, no cheering, no screaming, no. I was mostly indifferent. It was Indian food. Kathy confirms that we did get Indian food that day.
Coming through.
Yeah.
Well, I had pizza and wings. We're living in New York now. We got that good pizza.
Oh, yeah.
I can't get enough of it. So good. And hey, last football Sunday had to have it. So
I miss that New York pizza. That's for sure. There's not many places in Denver where you can get good New York pizza.
Well, the thing is there's too many pizza joints and they're all good, right? So we cycle through.
There you go.
Back and forth. But you'll never reach the end of it. There's literally 55 to 60 pizza joints within a 10-mile radius.
Yep.
So
sounds about right.
I have it.
It's the way it should be.
Anyway, Sterling is out. He couldn't find anything to drink, so he's going to get it ready for next week. He'll be coming back next Tuesday. He's just all the swag of the show is now gone. With Sterling out. Just so you know, just to warn everybody. But we do have some good insights for you. Going to get in the deets a little bit. First off, this was 96.4 million viewers for the Super Bowl.
Low.
Tons of people. It makes you wonder, what are the other 200 million people in the country doing on Super Bowl Sunday?
Watching at somebody else's house, probably.
Okay, yeah.
So the viewership numbers are complicated because, although maybe not this year because everybody had to watch it in their own house and not go to parties and things. But I believe the viewership was down from last year's numbers overall.
I did hear that. And the most watched Super Bowl was 2015. Seattle versus New England, 115 million viewers.
Right. And it's not just about the game, right? The game itself ended up being pretty boring because Tampa Bay ran away with it. And, that's going to view just football fans who want to watch a good game are going to be like, this isn't worth watching or whatever. And it wasn't a very eventful, the commercials and the halftime show, most people not exactly blown away by things. So it wasn't an eventful year for those types of things. There were a few commercials.
It was a pretty meh.
Yeah, exactly. The whole experience, as I said, just sitting on the couch, kind of we're watching it.
And I expected the game of the century, like a lot of people.
Oh yeah, it was super hyped up.
Tom Brady, old NFL versus the new NFL.
Yeah.
The gunslinger versus the mental quarterback. I mean, all of that was very disappointing because the game was so lopsided.
Yeah.
In many different facets. So pretty crazy. But of all the markets in the country, Kansas City led the ratings with 59. I don't know how they grade this stuff, but Kansas City had the highest rated market. Boston was second, and Tampa was third. Very interesting.
All the Tom Brady fans watching to see what happened with him up in Boston. That's interesting. Tampa was third on the list. That's what
jealousy looks like, right? Very powerful.
Yes.
So what's up, Reptile? Welcome. Talked about that. What about this Tampa Bay defense, though?
Oof. Yeah, man, I mean, it was brutal, right? I mean, they showed up. We knew they were playing very well in these playoffs, right? And they showed up throughout the playoffs. They're the reason, really, the team won in games where Tom Brady had 3 interceptions each, the last 2.
For me, that was the biggest surprise of the game is that Tampa Bay's defense showed up.
Yeah, and I mean, they took advantage of the fact that the offensive line for Kansas City was really beat up coming into this game. They lost their Pro Bowl right tackle. They lost, their guards. I mean, it was rough for them. They were shifted all around. Guys who weren't prepared to play in that position or weren't playing there all year, at least. It showed because, man, were they in Pat Mahomes' face every single play of the game. And here
you go.
It was brutal.
They had 3 sacks, 4 tackles for loss, 8 quarterback hits, 2 interceptions, 9 passes deflected, and 1 forced fumble. That's a day. That's a great day for a defense.
That is a hell of a stat.
Especially when you're playing the best quarterback in the league, you disrupt him. For me, the 8 quarterback hits really shows up because Pat Mahomes was not comfortable at all.
But kudos to that Tampa Bay defense for doing what our Buffalo defense could not do, and that is keeping Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill in check, right? You didn't let either of those guys break one off. Kelce ended up being the security blanket in the game. I mean, I think he almost caught every single pass that Mahomes threw to him, and it was, mostly in the second half in garbage time where they're running out the clock and all that. But that's the guy who was open, and the way they attacked, their game plan, Tampa Bay's defense, was phenomenal. They did everything right. They got pressure on Mahomes. They kept Tyreek Hill double covered at all times. They were able to cover Kelce when they needed to. So, I mean, they were impressive all the way around. There's some guys on that team who really played above their pay grade, for sure, and it showed. And that's why they dominated the whole game.
Yeah, and Jason Pierre-Paul is on that team, and it just reminds you of how do you beat great quarterbacks? Well, you rush 4, and you make a huge impact in the game with just the front 4. And those Giants teams, with Michael Strahan and JPP, that's what you want to get out of a defense when you're playing a great quarterback like Pat Mahomes or Tom Brady back then. And that's what it takes to win. And that's what the Bills lack, in my opinion. More on that later. But just tell me, does this sound like a Kansas City offense? 11 penalties for 120 yards. I mean, that's combined, obviously, but 3 for 13 on third down, 53% completion percentage, and Pat Mahomes had a 52.2 quarterback rating.
Oh, man. You know what that reminds me of? Josh Allen with a bad offensive line, right? People don't like to make the comparison of Pat Mahomes to Josh Allen, but guess what? They're basically on the same level. The only thing is Pat Mahomes has had an elite offensive line and elite receivers for a very long time. And we're just seeing Josh Allen get to that level with good offensive line play and really good receivers. So, I mean, when you don't have that, you take away that dominant offensive line. The receivers were still there, but when you take away that offensive line and everybody's in his face, he looks like sugar high Josh Allen or whatever you want to call him, playing for everything, trying to do too much, diving, making plays, running backwards 50 yards. I mean, everything he did was what we have been talking about Josh Allen, making those mistakes in games where he hasn't had an offensive line or, he's had to improvise and he tries to do too much.
Yeah, and throwing the ball at a 90-degree angle.
Oh, yeah.
And up in the air.
He's done that. Exactly.
We've seen that before. Right?
Everything. I was like, oh, that's like when bad Josh Allen shows up, right? It was amazing.
Our guy Randy says, JPP didn't need 2 hands to beat up Kansas City.
Yeah. He brought the fireworks in this one for sure.
That's so good. But yeah, 31-9 beat down. Didn't expect that.
No touchdown.
Good thing I didn't bet on the game because I would definitely have took Kansas City.
How about that? That bet paid off. That 0 touchdowns in the game. Whoever made that bet, certainly not me.
Oof.
But 0 touchdowns for the Pat Mahomes in that offense was probably a 3,000-1 bet for 0 touchdowns in the game. The one bet that impressed me the most, though, I don't know if you heard this, but when they had to stop play for the guy who ran on the field.
Oh, yeah.
That guy actually bet $50,000 that there would be a streaker in this game. So he had his friend jump down first, security went out, and he ran out onto the field. And with that bet, he won like $800,000 to his $50,000. Paid $1,000, did a night in jail as is required, and won $800,000. So that's
worth
top-notch betting right there.
Yeah. Next Super Bowl, we're gonna have like 50 people running on the field. Mm-hmm. I bet they do away with that.
Crazy. One. Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Oh, man, insane. Anyway, let's move on here. Let's get Anthony riled up. Tom Brady's the GOAT. Seven Super Bowl rings. He's now 7-3 in Super Bowls. And Tom Brady holds the NFL record for most playoff wins with 34. And most playoff games started with 45. He is 34-11 in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Anthony, man.
And you're not going to get me to say it. Not now, not ever, not with 3 more titles, not with 8 more titles. No, I'm not saying it. It's not happening. For me, if we take the objective, the unbiased opinion out of this, right? What does it mean to be the greatest of all time? Is it just titles? Because if it is, then there's, I can't dispute that. He's got 7 rings now. There's nothing I can argue against that.
So I think we have to talk about
he won titles. He's the best ever. But that to me isn't the whole story. We know early on in his career, it was mostly defense, and he just had to be there. He was the Trent Dilfer of the team, and he won Super Bowls, the first 2. Then he became a superstar, and in his own right, led his team and did what he had to win games. He's also lost the most Super Bowls. So, if you've lost the most Super Bowls, I mean, does that still make you the GOAT? Sure, you've been to 10. I mean, that's insane right there.
He's lost 3.
Is making it good enough? So I think you really have to ask yourself, and this is different for everybody, what it means to be the greatest of all time. And for me, there's certain intangible things that when I think about the greatest of all time, for me, it's still Peyton Manning. It's still Peyton Manning. He was the absolute greatest player I have ever seen play. He was better than everybody on the field. Just having him was good enough to make your team good and the other team bad. He led teams to the Super Bowl by himself, basically. To me, that's why Brady's always had a good organization around him. Certainly this one pads his resume for GOAT the most because it's hard to argue. He went to that team that was an 8-8 team with the same talent, and he brought them to the Super Bowl, and they won. But even in the game, right, even in this Super Bowl, we just got done talking about why Tampa Bay won. They won because of their defense. Their offense did what it had to do. It wasn't surprising what they did. They didn't put up 50. Nobody's sitting here saying, wow, that Tampa Bay offense blew us away. No, they did what they had to do. They capitalized on the Kansas City mistakes, which any good NFL team should do, right? Yeah. And they were able to score.
You have to look at it. How much does Tom Brady mean to these teams?
Yes.
And that's really where it comes down. I don't like the Michael Jordan comparisons.
No, God, no.
I mean, obviously two different sports, but I think Michael Jordan had the skill level, right, and he carried the team. Look, I get Brady has the mental capacity, and he's probably the best team leader we've ever seen. I mean, when Tom Brady's in the room, everybody believes they can win, and that is now proven. Multiple different teams with New England, and now 2 separate teams, completely separate teams, and he still gets a Super Bowl with a different coach now. That was the one argument that I had with Peyton Manning is 2 different coaches. That has now changed. So when you look at skill level, I think still for me, Aaron Rodgers is still the most talented quarterback I've ever seen. But Brady is absolutely team chemistry, leadership, making those around him better. He's the GOAT. There's no doubt about it.
We just talked about it. He won the Super Bowl doing what he had to do. He threw for touchdown passes. I think he had 3, right? 2 to Gronk, and 1 to Brown, right? So he had 3 touchdown passes, but they were, it wasn't some miraculous play. It wasn't bombs down the field. He wasn't throwing dimes out there. He was just taking what was given him, and that's great. He did it. Credit to him. I can't take away credit for that. But in the last 2 games, as we said, he lost the game. Tampa Bay should have lost both of those games because of Tom Brady. And we wouldn't be having this conversation right now. So he won those 2 games because of his defense. It's not like Peyton Manning, right? When Peyton Manning played in the games, he was the reason his team won every single time and never the reason they lost. Tom Brady, if they had lost these last two games, he would have been the reason they lost. In the middle of the season, I made that same argument when I said this Tampa Bay team wasn't even going to make the playoffs because Tom Brady was looking like crap. And he was the reason his team lost for the first time in his career, really, to me anyway. I mean, it was obvious that this team is not winning because you are holding them back. But he turned it on at the end of the season when he needed to most, especially those last four games. And then obviously the defense turned it on into the playoffs. And when it came to the Super Bowl, I think there is something to be said about his experience in the Super Bowl and how he can talk to his guys and say, this is exactly how this is going to go. This is exactly how your energy is going to go. This is exactly how we're going to get in their heads. And I mean, he has all that experience and he helped his players be ready for that moment. There's no question about that either, because he's been there more than any human being ever, 10 times. I mean, that's nuts. So sure, people can make their argument and say what they want for why they think he's the GOAT. And if you're just talking about he has 7 rings, great. But there's plenty of things you can knock him on. Just as people, I think Peyton Manning's the greatest of all time. And I've got plenty of ammo to say so, but people can attack my arguments too, and that's fine. Yeah. But it's not going to change my mind. So
it definitely was not a good day for guys like you, I would say. The arguments just keep getting better. And the longer he plays, I mean, it's getting thinner and thinner and thinner. I mean, what he's doing is unprecedented.
The problem with when you do that is when he's waiting to end his career. I mean, he's basically going to die on the field. That's what he wants, right? He wants to be 55 years old and still playing NFL at this point. Eventually, he is going to grind down. He is going to look like crap, and that's going to be the last memory people have of him. You know, we saw Peyton Manning's last year. Sure, he wasn't the same Peyton Manning. His team won the Super Bowl, and he retired because he did the right thing. I don't know that.
He had a rough year that year, though. Like,
Tom Brady
he completely fell apart in that.
But the year before, he was the MVP.
Osweiler won a few games.
The year before, he was the MVP, throwing 5,000 yards. So
I can't remember if it was 2 years before, but yeah, you're right. He did have 50 touchdowns a season. But I mean, Peyton was absolutely done the year they won the Super Bowl.
Oh, yeah.
And there's no question about it. Brady's he's coming back. They're going to be a good team next year.
In the middle of the season, I was calling him done. But he said,
they got hot at the right time. You know, Tom Brady did say that. And that's what you mentioned, the experience. Getting hot at the right time does matter. And I think that's hard to learn for young teams like the Bills, like a lot of other young teams around the league. Brady has that mastered, right?
The best news of this whole situation is Brady won his 7th Super Bowl, and he's playing Buffalo next year. All right, we get our chance. We have our chance. There is no game more important to the Buffalo Bills next season than that game against Tampa Bay. None. Not New England. We've been there, done that. Screw you. Not Miami. We crush you every time. We're not scared of you. Tampa Bay, we're looking you right in the eyes. That one is circled, highlighted, exclamation pointed on the season schedule, because that means more to Buffalo now than any of these games. Because if you can prove now you can beat Tom Brady with this championship caliber team, not with some beat up New England team or, you know, game 17 where he's benched or whatever, man, that would be the full redemption for the team. So, I mean, that's the best part of all of this is now we get to see the Super Bowl champs and Tom Brady. And we know everybody's going to have us be the underdogs in that game. But we'll see. I can't wait for that game. There's some excitement around the fact that it now potentially could be the opener of the NFL season, right?
Because like I said, the Super Bowl winner jealousy is extremely powerful.
Oh, yeah.
You're already talking about playing Tom Brady next year. A little bit of envy, maybe. All right, let's move on here because the Bills' biggest need after the Super Bowl, and the reason I bring this up is because I'm watching the Super Bowl and I'm thinking to myself, I think the Bills would have played this Tampa team better than the Chiefs did.
Yes.
And my needs for this team have changed. You know, I've been big on guard tackle early. You can check out our other series of making the case. Sterling made the case for running back. I made the case for guard and tackle. We got tight end coming up this week with Anthony.
Yes,
but you know, I'm looking at these teams in the Super Bowl and I'm going, the Bills need a pass rush. They need to improve pass rush because the Bills are going to be in the conversation, I think, for most of the offseason that they're Super Bowl contenders going into the seasons if they play their cards right? Which I think they will. They'll make some smart moves and they won't blow it up. But, you know, if you want to beat the great quarterbacks, you got to get a better pass rush, and that starts up front with the front four.
I mean, we tried to do this last year, right? They rebuilt the defensive line. They made them the highest paid, and it didn't work out. So we fully expect there to be changes on this defensive line going into next year. I mean, there are some obvious changes. Stars coming back, right? There's going to be, decisions to be made with three of the top guys, Addison, Butler, and Jefferson. So are those guys going to be cut outright? Are they going to be reduced salary? You can make whatever moves you want, but it's definitely going to change because that wasn't the pass rush efficiency that we were hoping for. Granted, no offseason, all the excuses you want to make, whatever. But I agree. We saw what a good defensive line, granted, again, against a weak offensive line for Kansas City, but what a pass rush can do to Pat Mahomes. He did not look like himself at all in this game. He was still able to make miraculous plays, but he did not look like himself. He did not dominate. I mean, 0 touchdowns. The box score says it all. When you get pressure on a quarterback like that, it changes the game. And that certainly is an area we need to improve on. When they do it and how they do it will be the most interesting thing that moving forward now.
Right. And you're a big component of linebacker as well. You could get a pass rushing linebacker, maybe run stopper, I always say Lonzo Alexander comes to mind because he did have a huge impact on the team. And I think he did get to the quarterback a lot. And he played linebacker most of the time. He played on the line a lot. But in a hybrid 4-3, attacking 4-3, I think the Bills are missing a guy like that.
Yes.
To get pressure on the edges. I mean, I think Jerry Hughes does a phenomenal job of getting close. He's one of the better guys in the league at just getting pressure because I remember he was getting a ton of calls for hitting the quarterback. So it seems like he just kind of focused on disrupting the quarterback. I just think you need another piece there. And I think that could be linebacker or on the line. And I previously didn't really think about that until I watched the Super Bowl game.
Yeah, how much of a difference it can make in that game against Mahomes. And we saw that firsthand. Our line, I think we sacked him once in that game, right? Or got pressure on him once versus 8 times in this game. I mean, it was a total difference.
And I think with Pat Mahomes and Tom Brady, like getting close isn't good enough.
Right.
You've got to hit them. I mean, the Tampa Bay had 8 quarterback hits. The speed changes again in the Super Bowl. And I mean, I saw some plays where Mahomes was getting, stiff armed in the face. He's upside down, his head's twisted backwards. I mean,
he made some crazy plays.
Yeah.
The 2 throws that come to mind for me are the ones in the first quarter. He threw a touchdown pass that bounced off the receiver's helmet. And I was just like, oh my God, that's on the receiver. He threw the ball to you. And it might have been fast and they're quicker than you expected, but it hit you in the face. That's not good.
Yeah.
And I think the receiver had to go up for it, but still, it hit you in the face. You should have caught it. And the same thing happened in the fourth quarter with that crazy sideline pass that hit the guy in his face mask. And I was like, look, it hit you in the face mask. You're supposed to catch that ball. I don't care if it's coming at you from this angle because he threw at a 90-degree angle. Your job is to catch it, and they didn't. Yeah. So, I mean,
Chiefs just had a bad day.
But you put him in that position. Again, you put him in that position to make that play. It's the same thing we've seen with Josh Allen, as I said earlier. That's exactly what teams try to do to Josh Allen. Make him move, make him get uncomfortable, make him do some crazy play, throw the ball up, and make a mistake. Hope he makes a mistake. Yeah. And sometimes that pays off.
Yep. All right, so let's move on from that one. We got a snub. Kevin Stefanski wins Coach of the Year. Is that deserved? Now, here's the lineup. First playoff win in 25 years for the Browns. First 11-win season since 1994. Finished third in the division, and we can all agree Baker took a step under this coaching staff. All this in his first year as a head coach. We always talk about, Cleveland has one of the better rosters in the league. I think that's true. But, I mean, to come in and have your first year be this successful for an organization that's been bad for so long, bullshit. I kind of get it. I get it.
No, you don't.
I'll tell you why. Sour.
I'll tell you why. This is the biggest snub in NFL history. And that's not an exaggeration. The last 5 coaches to win it, even more than that probably, but definitely the last 5 are all the ones who finished with more wins than their predicted preseason. That was Coach Sean McDermott this year. not Coach Kevin Stefanski. He didn't even win his division. They made the playoffs. They were the third team in their division. They had the easiest schedule in the NFL. They had the best lineup coming in. They had two of the best receivers. One of them went down. Okay, they had two of the top 10 running backs in the NFL coming in. They had a great offensive line this year. Sure, the coach gets some credit for that. But here's the biggest problem I have with that. You just listed it, right? Oh, yeah, he's a first-year coach. Guess who was a first-year coach at one point and brought a team to the playoffs? Sean McDermott. These are the same Taylor, right. These are the same voters, the same goddamn people who said Sean McDermott didn't deserve it in 2017 when he brought this team to the playoffs in his first year as coach. Said, no, that's not good enough. 17-year playoff drought, most worst, run organization in the NFL for the last 20 years, all that stuff that Buffalo was before Sean McDermott. We make the playoffs. He turns that team, with people predicted us to win 2 games. We won 9. It's like, come on, that he should have won it. But no, why? Because, that's not who we give it to. We give it to the best coach. And that was, the guy who got the most wins this year or whatever. Oh, yeah, that was this coach who had a really good roster but did well. The Browns had a good roster coming in. Sean McDermott was given a roster of toilet paper and horse shit and turned it into a playoff team. So and he wasn't coach of the year, and now the same goddamn 29 voters or whatever it is tell me Kevin Stefanski deserves it because they made it to the playoffs?
And a lot of the media members did comment on this, and they said, Sean McDermott should have won it in 2017. It's getting that team to the playoffs.
And that's what I mean. And now people are trying to say to me, so they got it wrong in 2017, but now they got it right, and that's okay. No, because it's the same voters. What is your priority? How do you make your decision? Whatever it is, keep it consistent. Don't change it so that every year Sean McDermott isn't the guy who wins it. Because that's what they've done. Last year. Sean McDermott could have won it last year. Why didn't he win it last year? Because, this team had more wins. So we'll give it to the Ravens this year. We'll give it to them.
Well, what are their parameters for coaching? Is it how much you do in one season? Is it
that's my
roster
point.
Building? Is it?
Whatever the fuck we want, and not Sean McDermott. That's what their rules are right now, and that's absolute sin. Because there's no way you can tell me that Harbaugh deserved it last year, but Sean McDermott doesn't deserve it this year. Are you kidding me?
Well, in the same sentence, Stefanski gets 25 votes. Sean McDermott had 7. Brian Flores had 6. Where's Matt LaFleur?
Yeah,
with 13.
That's the thing. I could say if LaFleur won it, then you have an argument for LaFleur. He won more games than they was expected. He brought that team.
But there's also a reason why Bill Belichick doesn't ever win it, right? I think maybe he's won it once or twice. I don't know for sure.
Well, LaFleur has
Bill Belichick has never won it. Yeah, so I just don't know what the parameters are. I mean, is it the story? I mean, because it's
I
the
just
AP,
told you
right?
what the parameters are. Anybody but Sean McDermott. Whatever it takes to make it not Sean McDermott in 2017. Okay, so it's not the coach who did the most impressive thing with the least amount of talent. But 2019. Oh, wait, it's the coach who just got the most wins with the most talent. 2020. It's this guy because they were a really bad franchise and hadn't made the. Fuck you, man. I mean, I was never more pissed at the NFL than I was for this. And people were giving me shit on Facebook and Twitter and everywhere. But I'm sorry. This was the biggest sin in NFL history to me. You cannot tell me 3 years ago you had this parameters, and now 3 years later you have completely different parameters and standards. Yeah. No, because now all you're doing is making it so that Sean McDermott doesn't win. What can we do next year to make sure Sean McDermott doesn't win? Well, he's already won the division, so we don't care if he goes 15-1 and makes the playoffs and is the number 1 seed. He's still not going to win it because Jacksonville made the playoffs with 8 wins, so they're going to have Coach of the Year this year.
The other thing I can see is Sean McDermott has a direction, and the expectations were high for the Bills, and they met the expectations.
I
feel like Cleveland, though. Hold on.
4 games above our preseason prediction and wins. That was the most in the NFL.
Cleveland was spinning out of control. Nobody had any idea what this team would end up being at the end of the year. They were bad with I forget his name, their old coach. But this guy comes in and gets it on track, and now I think they're going to be competitors again next season.
Exactly.
I'm playing devil's advocate, but That's one
There's
more
no
thing I can see.
logical argument. There's none. There's zero logical argument for picking Stefanski over McDermott at this point. Zero. There's no explanation that makes sense. I don't care who you are. I don't care what perspective you're coming from. Based on what the voters have done every single year, you don't suddenly change that this year to make it fit your storyline of who you want to win. That is absolute bullcrap, and that's what they did. And like you said, the Bills finished with 13 wins. That was tied for the most in the league at 4 over their predicted wins with the Green Bay Packers. Again, if it was LaFleur, maybe you could have made an argument for him. But Stefanski did not do that. The Bills went 6-0 in their division. I mean, come on. What do you need to do? If you're Sean McDermott, like I said, there's literally nothing he can do to win it. He could go 15-1 next year. They're not going to give it to him.
Right. I agree with PJ here. Stefanski walking in on an all-star roster.
Yes.
McDermott walked into a dumpster fire and built it from the ground up. I agree with that 100%. McDermott built the roster, brought in the coaching staff, and really got this thing on track. And he's third year going into fourth. I mean, Stefanski inherited how many first
I know
picks
all
do they
these
have
guys
on that roster, including
all
the quarterback was the number 1 overall pick. I mean, I get that point.
And to your other point about last year, there was no question that they hired the most ridiculous coach ever, probably the most shocking hire in NFL history, because it was a guy they promoted from quarterback coach to head coach like that. And what happened? It was a train wreck. And everybody predicted that it was going to not go well for them. Like, oh, wow, this is shocking. What are you doing, Cleveland? And they learned their lesson the hard way. But it didn't change the fact that was a good roster with really good players. And so you could have hired me and that team would have done better. So
let's talk about Baker's growth, right? Because the media wants Baker to be great for whatever reason that is, right? But Sean McDermott turned Josh Allen into a superstar. He became a superstar this year. I see him on the national media every day now. That was not happening last offseason.
And there's something to be said about how big those steps were every year.
Yes.
Under Sean McDermott.
And Josh Allen himself gets a ton of credit, but Sean McDermott provided those resources for him to grow. And that's something you can't say yet about Cleveland.
Yeah, and he there's no question Baker took a step back last year, and now he takes half a step forward and everybody freaks out for him? No! Sean McDermott has the better quarterback. He's developed the better quarterback over the years. You've taken this step forward compared to Josh Allen's huge step forward everywhere. It's crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy.
Reptile
earmuffs for little baby Anthony.
Well, Kathy will tell you, actually.
She's not on here telling you to quiet down yet.
The whole time in the womb, he was listening to me screaming at these Bills games. And I tell you what, I swear, my loud actions and voice actually calms him. He goes to sleep when I'm screaming. So maybe it's helpful.
He's going to grow up to be just like you, and we'll get him on the show.
Right. There you go.
All right, a couple more topics. Let's move on to our next one here. Potential Bills cuts. John Brown came out on Instagram and acknowledged the fact that he knows that he has the potential to be cut this season. Do you think it happens?
John Brown first. I'm leaning toward yes. I really think unless some kind of miraculous deal happens where they end up restructuring and paying him half of the salary or less, right now, if they cut him, they get $8 million in cap space. That's a huge leap this year. That's a lot of money, and it needs to go to other places on this team. At this point, when you're building a roster, you have to talk about what sacrifices you're willing to make to solidify other positions. If we get rid of John Brown, is that a hit to our wide receiver room? Sure. He's our number 2 guy right now. But what we've seen is that without John Brown, our offense doesn't take a gigantic leap backwards.
And so you have to assume Gabe Davis will take a step.
Exactly. And you have other guys. We don't know what some of the other wide receivers are going to be yet, or if we sign another guy for half the salary of John Brown. I mean, it comes down to the dollars now. The Bills need to make money, need to find cap room in order to fill the holes we have. And wide receiver is a position where we have the guys to pad the fact that we might have to cut somebody. And John Brown and that $8 million is just looming there. So unfortunately, I'd love to keep John Brown, but not at the price he's at. So I'm leaning toward cutting him. Yeah.
Yeah, in that same sentence, Jerry Hughes is in a similar situation. Both are under contract for 2021 at $9.5 million. Do you think Jerry Hughes could be a cap casualty?
No, and I tell you, to me, in the preseason last year, I might have said they'll consider it at the end of the year. But as of right now, my thoughts are no. You cannot lose Jerry Hughes. He's been your best player on the D line. He's been your leader on that defense, at least in terms of his veteran experience and his gutsiness and the way he plays. He's got McDermott's style, McDermott kind of guy. And even at that salary, maybe they try to negotiate with him. Again, a chance to maybe extend him a year and knock that salary in half for this season. That could be a possibility. But I don't think Hughes is one of the guys to get cut. I think there's other spots on the D-line, as we've talked earlier, that are going to change.
Right. Lone Wolf says Jefferson and Butler for sure. Yeah. Both defensive tackles. Possibly Addison, but he has quite a bit more dead cap space. That's absolutely true. Especially with Star Lotulelei coming back, I think Jefferson or Butler could go, right?
Or both.
You could get some cap savings there.
And neither one contributed player works this year. Addison of those three is the one who was in the plays and contributed the most. We saw his name out there the most, even though it wasn't necessarily sacks or big numbers that he was putting up. And he was making plays.
If you're trying to get extra cap space, I don't think you cut John Brown. I think the team's a lot better with John Brown on the field. He battled some injuries, right, and the team evolved, but I think we can all agree that with John Brown, this offense is a lot better.
Yes. Yeah.
He has great chemistry with Josh Allen.
John Brown, yeah.
And this team, you want to compete with Kansas City, you need all the help you can get at receiver because you need to score points. You need to maintain that 30 points a game they're getting or whatever it was, higher than that, I think. But I would try to keep him, build through the draft. This team's close, right? You got Star Lotulelei coming back. Not a ton of major needs to, get this.
Like I said, you got to find money somewhere.
Right.
If you want to fix the D-line, as you said in the Super Bowl conversation, right? We've seen add D-line help, and you have a difference maker to beat the Kansas City Chiefs. In order to do that, you have to cut John Brown, or you have to cut, a significant other space, because right now we're over the cap. So something is going to change. They could rework all of these guys. Who knows? Yeah. Work some cap magic. Bean is going to have to do some wizardry, as are all GMs around the league this year.
And if you want really detailed salary cap talk, Anthony Proska on Disguised Coverage and Greg Tomsett got together and they did a great salary cap show. And so many details. Jump in there, check those guys out, and you'll come out a lot smarter. I guarantee it.
Yeah, that was a great episode just last Friday.
Be sure to check that out. Any other potential Bills cuts for you?
Ooh, yeah. There's some other names. The other one that comes to mind, I believe the guys talked about this on Friday too, is Lee Smith. You've heard rumblings of his potential retirement, but we were talking about cutting him in this preseason as well. And I think at this point it is time to cut ties. My episode on Friday is going to be about tight ends, and that's one of the things I'm going to start with. The three guys we had this year who saw playing time were Croft and Lee Smith and Knox. The only one coming back of that group is Knox, I think. Yeah. And you talk about Tommy Sweeney, and if he's even going to be able to ever play again, I don't think he is, because of the COVID health situation that he found himself in, the heart condition. So you got one tight end on this roster. That's certainly a position that's going to need to change, but Lee Smith just isn't efficient enough to justify keeping him on the roster at this point. You can replace him with somebody. So we'll see.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think Dawson Knox definitely contributes to the team's success. He's a viable part of the offense, but you have to find something at tight end. And I'm sure Anthony will fill us in big time on that later in the week with our Making the Case segment that we're going to be doing for a period of time in place of the Friday show, getting everybody ready for the game. There's no more games, so we're going to get you ready for the offseason. So be sure to check that out. All right, so let's move on. We have one more segment with you, and it's a big one. the quarterback carousel, Wentz, Watson, and now Wilson. Russell Wilson showing some frustration up in Seattle. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, the Wilson thing just makes me laugh. I don't think he's going anywhere. I don't think they have any desire to trade him, nor would they ever, even if he said, I want to trade and I don't want to play for you anymore. They'd probably laugh at him and say, so what? Get your butt out there. I'd be shocked if that one happens. The other two are inevitable, and it's just a matter of when, not if at this point, and how long those teams are willing to wait. You know, if you're Philly, for example, you can wait up until the day the season starts, right? Just bid it up. If somebody's not giving you the price for Wentz, somebody's going to get injured or something's going to happen. A team's going to need a quarterback. They'll call you up and they'll pay your price because you already presumably have the quarterback you want on the roster. You're not in need of anything. You're just trying to offload somebody who doesn't want to be there anymore, and you don't want anymore. It seems pretty mutual there at this point.
Right. This quarterback stuff's getting pretty crazy. I mean, no team can afford the trade anymore. After the Matt Stafford deal, in my opinion, Deshaun Watson's now off the market because there's no such thing as
he's the one exception.
The draft capital to pay.
Even above Wilson, I think Watson is the prize here, right? We've talked about it before that I would give up 6 first-round draft picks to have a guy like Watson on my team because he's a guaranteed top 5 quarterback in this league. He did it with a crappy team last year. You know he can get it done. He's the guy who can take you to that next level. So if I'm Miami or if I'm one of these teams that has picks to spare, even if I don't, I would still give it up if I thought my team was a quarterback away from winning it all. Because if that's true, your team's going to win it all next year. Yeah. If you get Deshaun Watson, so
you'll be set up for the next 5 years, right?
Exactly. So it definitely, I think Watson will get whatever price they ask for, and we'll see more action on this as the league goes on. Right? It tends to cool off right now, even though people are saying, "Oh, he's going to get traded. Who's going to get him?" Oh, this team is interested. Just like the Wentz talk with Indy and the Bears, right? Those were the two teams mainly mentioned in his rumors. And then all of a sudden, it's inevitable. He's going to get traded today or tomorrow. Today and tomorrow went by, and he's still not traded. So I think this is the time where it kind of cools off until that free agency period starts in March, because then you need the money to sign guys and you need to start filling out your roster. Those decisions have to be made so things start happening a little quicker. And then again, as I said, into the preseason, when injuries and things happen and guys get a better sense of their team and what they need, what they're willing to give up to try and be competitive. I mean, Wentz, we don't know what he's going to be. It needs to be a team that believes he can still be what he was 2 years ago and not the regression he had this year, right? Watson is the prize, as we said, and Wilson, I mean, I don't think that's happening.
Well, I think, Wilson, I think, is just frustrated with the offensive line. And, I mean, my thoughts on that are he runs around a lot. He's getting all these sacks because he's not the type of guy to drop back and get rid of the ball like we see with Tom Brady or some other quick release quarterbacks. Wilson's trying to make plays all the time. Give the guy what he wants. If he wants you to draft a tackle, give him a tackle. He's done enough for the organization to do that. But you got to sense a little bit of a political move here with, Sierra works in LA and New York, right? And Wilson's now, this is no longer pre-Sierra Wilson. This is now post-Sierra Wilson. Maybe he wants to get to New York, a bigger market. Who knows? But that's the way I kind of see it. I think it's all fluff. I think it's all politics. I don't think there's any truth to it. Yeah. I think Wentz can still play. I really do. I think he's in a bad situation. He's got a good taste for the NFL now, and maybe Philly is in the right place. But I think if he gets a fresh start, he has the physical traits to really take advantage of somewhere like the Colts or even the Bears. Those are good teams with good offensive head coaches. I think his career can be salvaged, no doubt about it. Watson, I think I'm not real sure if Lone Wolf said the Jets and Dolphins give up the capital to trade for Watson. They're the only two teams that I can see.
And that's really unfortunate for us because those are the
for
two
us.
Teams. We're like, come on, NFC team. Come on, San Francisco.
Well, unless we see like a Matt Ryan trade with Atlanta, something crazy out of left field. I mean, but
I just brought up San Francisco, and they have the same type of problem, right?
They don't have the capital
that they paid, and you now need to give him up and make something happen. So maybe you give up one of your defensive stars along with him to get Deshaun Watson. It's totally going to change your dynamic. But
so let's do it like this. I'll say quarterback's name. Just tell me what team he will play for next season, week 1. Let's go Carson Wentz.
Indy.
I say Chicago.
Okay.
So that's good. How about Deshaun Watson?
Out of pure hope alone, San Francisco.
I'm going to say the Texans.
Wow.
I don't think they get rid of him.
Wow. That's way more shocking than anything I could have said. Yeah.
How about Sam Darnold?
Ooh, that's a good one. As a starter or as a quarterback?
I think he'll get a starting job.
Chicago then, because I picked Indy for the last one. Yeah.
I go Indy because they get desperate.
Yeah, so we switched quarterbacks.
That team's good. The Colts are a good team, but they're, there's a chance that they miss out on the quarterback carousel and they end up with a Jacoby Brissett or something, and it costs them. I mean, I like
Randy's thought here. Watson to Carolina, that'd be a great fit. I think why not let them go there if they're willing to give it up. Again, they don't have a plethora of picks, but they're interested for sure. They have Teddy Bridgewater, so they're going to have to figure something out there, but certainly could make it work. And Lone Wolf brings up another quarterback that we kind of haven't talked about yet. Dak Prescott, and will he be in Dallas next year? I don't know, because the salary cap situation makes things very interesting right now, especially for Dak Prescott, because he didn't sign with Dallas because he was holding out for more money when they offered him whatever it was, 35 allegedly, a year. And so if he's looking for more than that, he's certainly not going to get it this year, especially coming off the injury. His best bet would probably be to play for 1 year deal and then prove that he can be healthy and be good again.
He just got done doing that.
Exactly.
And it was unfortunately got an injury, but I think he did enough to earn that money. So they have to find a way to afford him. Or you go into where New England is right now and quarterback no man land.
Yeah, somebody's got to play in New England. Which quarterback do you think goes to New England?
They're not really in a position to get a quarterback.
Dalton, maybe? I don't know.
I think a dark horse for New England is Jacoby Brissett.
Oh, that'd be an interesting fit.
I think he'll hit free agency, and he started his career out there. It's just the thing with free agencies, you have a choice. So we'll see if he wants to go to New England.
Yeah. Maybe, or if they shunned him too much and now he's like, no, you didn't want me, so I'll go be a backup somewhere else.
It doesn't matter. We got our guy. Feels good.
It does.
Pay that man. Pay him.
I was going to say,
lock it up.
The question is, we're talking salary cap and money. They've got to make Josh Allen happen too. We know inevitably, guaranteed, they're picking up the 5th-year option. They have to do that this offseason, right? Because he's going into his 4th year. You pick it up before the 4th year begins. So they will do that. So no matter what, he's our quarterback for the next 2 years. But I have a feeling that they're going to extend him sooner rather than later because that number only goes up as you go along. Yeah. So the sooner you lock him up, the better.
Yeah, and I think both sides are into it. And it gives you peace of mind going into the next season that this is Josh's team and all that political stuff's out of the way. And you can just focus on football. So there's a lot of value to that. I expect them to lock him up. And we have to get Greg on the show one of these days and talk about the real numbers. Guy's a salary cap guru. And the implications of the salary cap being a little bit lower this year, what kind of impact does that have? It'd be fun to find out. Anyway, that's all we got. That is all we got. A little shorter shows in the off season. Football is over, folks. Find your old hobbies.
We got a lot of content, though, right? So, as Eric said, we still got our show going Friday. So tune in for the recorded podcast on Fridays on all your favorite podcast networks. If you haven't listened to the series that we started yet, go back and listen to Sterling did the first one on running back. Eric did one on offensive linemen. As we said, I'm going to do the Friday episode on tight ends and making the case for which position the Bills need to improve and how they can do it, basically, which players are on our radar at this point in time. So, yeah, it's an exciting series. We're going to continue with that. And then we'll get together and share our ideas for the offense and then go through the same thing with the defense and start there. So we got a lot of great content coming your way. We're still going to be live on Tuesdays talking about, topics around the league.
Right, and especially with the draft. I mean, a little bit far away now, but we're going to start getting into the details.
Yes, we got some great guests lined up as always, so stay tuned for sure.
Yeah, and we'll see you next week, Tuesday, and Anthony's show comes out Friday. All the major platforms. Be sure to check out Making the Case for Tight End. And we'll see you next week. Have a good night.
Go Bills!